Well, all right. I'm glad that you are here. I think we've been rolling for several minutes, and the people that are watching from home are probably thinking, what's he doing up there? And so just yakking. Yeah, yakking. That's what I do best, yak. We are in Genesis chapter 27 tonight. I hope that you picked up a listening guide because you're going to need it. I'm going to try to be very practical and want this to be kind of interactive. I know that one of the, I wouldn't call it a complaint, but one of the things that those who are watching online, they get frustrated with is when you speak, either on Sunday when we're taking prayer requests or even on Wednesday nights when I'll ask a question, wanting to get a response. They don't hear what you say, and so they want me to repeat what you said. And so I may or may not do that, okay? And so, and I realize that there are some, and this is just me picking on those of you that are watching online. I don't have a hard time. You don't have a hard time hearing here, right? I'm kidding, sort of. But anyway, we are in Genesis chapter 27. Let me just, by way of introduction, just say this to you as we kind of will read it. I'm going to read all 46 verses here in a minute, just read it through. And I just want you to take in what we're reading because I want this to be kind of an interactive Bible study. I don't want this to be a lecture, okay? Most times on Wednesday nights, it becomes more of a lecture, but tonight I want it to be a little bit more interactive because this is a narrative, okay, that we're going to read here in just a few moments. But I want you to think about this before I read. I submit to you that Genesis chapter 27 is one of the saddest chapters in all of the Bible. You say, well, why do you say that? No one dies in this particular chapter. But everyone mentioned, from Isaac to Rebekah to Jacob to Esau, every one of them does something terribly wrong in this chapter. And you're going to see it as we read through it in just a moment. And so I submit to you, this is one of the saddest chapters in all the Bible. And you want to talk about, I thought my family was dysfunctional. You're going to see the definition of a dysfunctional family right here in Genesis chapter 27. Anybody can relate to that? Anybody else's family kind of dysfunctional? My wife and I are always picking on each other to figure out whose family is more dysfunctional, her family or my family. She swears up and down it's my family, and I swear up and down it's her family. And so, but I would never say that to her family, and I hope that she would never say that to my. It's okay that she says it to me, just don't say it to my family, okay? Because that might be feuding words amongst my family, but I can take it because I know it's true, okay? So I hope that now you have found Genesis chapter 27. And just follow along as I read aloud. Let me read these 46 verses, and we'll come back and we'll begin to unpack it and talk about it. So bear with me, okay? So hopefully you're watching online. I hope that you're not just listening. I hope that you are engaged as well. By the way, if you are watching online and want a handout, a listening guide, I'd be more than happy to email it to you, but you've got to let me know. I'm not a good through the TV, through the computer mind reader, okay? So you've got to let me know. I'd be more than happy to send that to you. But now here we are in Genesis 27. I'll begin reading in verse 1 and just kind of let this narrative sink into your mind, and we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Genesis 27 verse 1 says this, "Now it came to pass, when Isaac was old, and his eyes were so dim that he could not see, that he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, 'My son.' And he answered, 'Here I am.' Then he said, 'Behold, now I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore, please take your weapons, your quiver, your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me. And make me savory food such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat.'" Now watch this, "that my soul may bless you before I die." Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau, his son. She's eavesdropping. "And Esau went to the field to hunt game and to bring it. Now Rebekah spoke to Jacob, her son, saying, 'Indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau, your brother, saying, Bring me game and make savory food for me, that I may eat and bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I've commanded you. Now she's now talking to Jacob, okay? Now therefore, my son, verse 8, now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock. Bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father that he may eat it, that he may bless you before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, look, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and I shall bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. But his mother said to him, let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go and get them for me. And he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory food, such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the choice clothes of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she gave the savory food and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. So he went to his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit, eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? And he says, because the Lord your God brought it to me. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Verse 21, then Isaac said to Jacob, please come near, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands, so he blessed him. Then he said, are you really my son Esau? And what did he say? I am. And he said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's game, so that my soul may bless you. So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said to him, come near now and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed me, and he smelled the smell of his clothing, and blessed him, and said, surely the smell of my son is like the smell of the field, which the Lord has blessed. Now, you might want to mark verse 28 and 29. And the reason why I tell you that is because here is the blessing. Okay, here is, in essence, Isaac executing his last will and testament, okay, that he would normally do under normal circumstances. Here it is. Here's the blessing right here, verse 28, 29. Therefore, may God give you of the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. And let peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who do what? Who bless you. Okay, so now he has bestowed the blessing upon Jacob. Verse 30, now it happened, and you would know this would be the case, as soon as he got done doing that, the other brother would show up. Now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also made savory food and brought it to his father, and said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me. And don't you know what Isaac's starting to go through in his mind? And his father Isaac said to him, who are you? So he said, I am your son, your firstborn Esau. Then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him, and indeed he shall be blessed. Then Esau heard the words of his father. He cried with exceeding great and bitter cry, and said to his father, bless me, me also, O my father. But he said, your brother came with deceit, and has taken away your blessing. And Esau said, is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now look, he's taken away my blessing. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? Then Isaac answered and said to Esau, indeed, I have made him your master, and all his brethren I have given to him as servants. With grain and wine I have sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice, and what did he do? And Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth and of the dew of the heaven from above. But your sword you shall live. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass when you become restless that you shall break his yoke from your neck. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. And the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, now I want you to pay close attention to what she's saying to Jacob, because I want you to mark something here. Surely your brother Esau, this is middle part of verse 42, surely your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you by intending to kill you. Now watch this. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran. Now watch this. And stay with him for how long? Mark that. Mark that. Stay with him a few days, and I'll tell you why when we get to it. Until your brother's fury turns away. So in other words, she's thinking, all right, go away for a few days, and maybe this will be out of sight, out of mind. Maybe time will heal all wounds here. Okay, that's the mindset that she has. Verse 45, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him, then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved also of you both in one day? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth, I like these who are the daughters of the land. What good will my life be to me? Now, I got to wondering, as I told you by way of introduction a while ago, that this is one of the saddest chapters in all the Bible. And again, you want to talk about a dysfunctional family. Here is the epitome of a dysfunctional family. And I got to thinking about, man, what caused this family to really self-destruct like it is self-destructing right before our eyes? And I think that you find the answer. If you go back to Genesis chapter 25 and look at verse 28, I think here's where you begin to see the wind that begins to push over the dominoes, so to speak. Genesis 25, verse 28. Does anybody want to read that for me? Now, what do you have in that one verse? What do you see? You have division and you have partiality. You have a dad who has taken the favorite of one son, and not only is the dad guilty, but the mother is just as guilty because she is also showing favoritism toward the younger. And again, these are twin boys. Esau's the oldest only because he was born earlier. But now you've got this dysfunction of this family because you've got a dad who's loving this one son more, and you've got a mother who's loving this other son more. And really, it propels or projects this dysfunctionality within this family, and it ultimately becomes the ultimate train wreck. Okay. Now, as we work our way through this text, I want to look at verses 1 through 4 and talk to you a little bit about Isaac and what I'm going to call the dwindling father. The dwindling father. Now, let me reread verses 1 through 4, and then I want to ask you a question. Okay, and this is going to be, I'm going to try to make this as much interactive tonight as I can. Let me reread verses 1 through 4, then I want to ask you this compelling question. Genesis 27, verses 1 through 4. Let me read it one more time, and then I'm going to ask you this compelling question. Now, it came to pass, when Isaac was old, and his eyes were so dim that he could not see, that he called Esau his older son and said to him, my son, and he answered him, here I am. Then he said, behold, now I am old, and I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore, please take your weapons, your quiver, your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and make me savory food, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. Now, what is happening? Here's the compelling question. What is happening in these 4 verses? What is it that Isaac feels like he's getting ready to do? Are we all in agreement with that? Isaac absolutely thinks that death is knocking at the door. Now, here's what's interesting about this. You know, the Bible talks about him being old. You expect older folks to die. That's what we are all headed for. I don't mean to be morbid tonight, but that's what we're all headed for. But you know what? Death is not the respecter of persons. The young die, the middle-aged die, the old die. But the Bible tells us that he's getting older. In fact, we suspect that he's roughly about 137 years of age about this particular time. And maybe one of the reasons why he's thinking about death is because his half-brother died at the age of 137. That's how old Ishmael was when he died. But here's the kicker, and no pun intended. He don't die. Isaac doesn't die for another 8 chapters. Or to put it another way, he doesn't die for another 43 years. You do the math. 43 years. I don't know about you. I'm 55. I'll be 56 in July. I think 43 years is a long time. Okay? So think about that. He thinks that he's at death's door. Okay? And what he's wanting to do here is, well, you know what? Since death can come to me anytime, and he's right about that, because death can come to us at any time, and God forbid anything happen to any of us. It can. But he thinks that death is knocking on his door, and so he's thinking, you know what? I need to go ahead and execute my last will and testament and carry this out. But here's the problem with what he's doing. He's asked his oldest son, Esau, to go get him his favorite game. In this particular case, probably, I don't know, whatever the game is, venison probably, and make this savory dish for me, you know, so this kind of be my last meal, so to speak, so that I can carry out the blessing. But here's the problem with what Isaac is doing here. You'll remember when these boys, when Rebekah got pregnant with these boys, that God had told Rebekah and Esau that the elder will serve the younger. So God had already made that declaration, okay? God already made that very, very clear. And so one of two things is happening here in my mind. Either in his old age and his feebleness, Isaac has forgotten that, or because he has so much extra love and favoritism toward Esau, he's ignoring what God said. Now, isn't that interesting if that's what he's doing? Right? And by the way, did you notice something else here in verse 4? Because I got to thinking, why? And ultimately, because when Rebekah hears this, and we'll talk about this when we deal with her in just a moment, you think about Rebekah giving the ultimate disrespect to her husband in what she does, and deceiving and scheming this plan. It was her plan for Jacob to do what he did, and Jacob just carried out his mother's orders. But it was Rebekah who's doing this. You know, you think about in those days, more than ever before, it was almost unthinkable for a wife to disrespect her husband on this level. And so I wonder what caused her to get to that point. Could it be that what we're told in verse 4, he says, and make me savory food such as I love. This is not just that he was fond of this being his favorite food. This had become an insatiable desire within him. I mean, this had become almost like his first love, almost like loving this food and the satisfying of his flesh more than even loving his own wife. Now, we men, we like to break out that verse in the book of Ephesians, especially at wedding times and maybe even throughout our lives. We'll say, well, wives are to be subject to their husbands in all things. And and men will often say, well, you just need to submit. That's what you need to do. You just need to submit. Guys, don't ever do that. That'll get you a one-way ticket to the couch, right? But I'll remind you this. God also commands the man to love his wife even as he loves his own body. Now listen to this, men. I have yet to find a man or find a woman, a wife, who has any issues with submission to the man who loves her the way she deserves and desires to be loved. If a man is loving his wife like that, a wife is going to be submissive the right kind of way. And again, submission does not make the woman inferior. Okay, it's a matter of placing one's own self under the authority of other. It has to do with functional role. It has nothing to do with creative worth. Okay, so make sure we all understand that tonight. You sure can. That's what it says. That's exactly what it says. That's absolutely what it says. Absolutely. And most men will say, oh, yeah, I'm more than willing to die for my wife, because they know at that particular time their life is not being put at risk. But I would hope that all of you men, you married men, that would say, you know what, absolutely I'd give my life for my wife, and I absolutely would do that for my wife and for my family, as I know that you would as well. Okay? And so I find this very interesting that he's trying to execute his will here. And again, one of two things is happening, at least in my mind. You can agree to disagree. Either he has conveniently forgotten what God has said, that the elder will serve the younger, or he is trying to circumvent what God has already decreed. Okay? But one thing's for sure, his flesh got the best of him. So we see, first of all, Isaac, the dwindling father. He's going downhill. At least in his mind, he thinks he's going downhill. And maybe he is in a way, because his own senses have become dull to him. And we'll see this as we work our way through this text. Now look at verses 5 through 17. I'm not going to reread all of these verses. But then I want to talk to you not only about Isaac, the dwindling father, but think with me about Rebekah, the doubting mother. Rebekah, the doubting mother. Again, God had already declared Isaac and Rebekah were very well aware of God's decree that the elder will serve the younger, that the promise of the covenant would continue on through Jacob. But rather than trust God in this matter, she takes matters into her own hands. Again, the question arises, why would she go to great lengths to disrespect her husband the way that she did? And I got to thinking about this, and I can't prove this completely, but this is just me thinking, and I'd like to get your feedback and opinion too. I think it actually goes back to chapter 26, when you'll remember when they came upon the Assyrians. It was Assyria, wasn't it? In chapter 26, Abimelech, remember him? Oh, the Philistines, king of the Philistines, not the Syrians, but the Philistines. And remember what Isaac, and he's got Rebekah by his side. Remember what Isaac told Rebekah to do? Yeah, tell him that you are my sister. So how do you think that made her feel? Now, he's trying to protect his own skin, right? He's talking about willing to die for your wife. He's trying to protect his own skin here. But, how does that make her feel that he fears for his life more than he does in protecting her? Because if God not intervened, what would happen? She would be taken and violated, right? And so I'm wondering if her lack of respect or her disrespect for her husband, our failure to respect him, began starting right then because of what he did. Okay, now, again, that's just me thinking. And plus what we see there in verse 4, that maybe he wasn't loving her the way that he should have been loving her. Okay, again, that's just my opinion there. Now, look at verses 8 through 17, or verses 5 through 17. Here's what she says. She overhears what Isaac is planning to do. And so she says in verse 5, or says in verse 5 about Rebekah. Now, Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau, his son. And Esau went to the field to hunt game and to bring it. So he's carrying out exactly what his father commanded him to do. And so what does she go and do? So Rebekah spoke to Jacob, her son, saying, "Indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau, your brother, saying, 'Bring me game and make savory food for me, that I may eat it and bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death.'" So she's basically retelling the story to Jacob as she heard it. And now she says, verse 8, "Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goats, And I will make savory food for them, for your father, such as he loves. Now, I find this very interesting that Isaac tells Esau to go get game, okay, to go get venison, and she tells Jacob to go get goats. She's going to have to make them the same, if nothing else. She's going to have to cook it in a way to where she disguises the taste if they don't taste the same, okay? I don't know. I've not had a goat. Any of you ever eaten goat? Okay, all right. I was just checking, okay? I'm not a big... may very well be, because he must have been duped by that too, okay? I'll be honest with you. I know I'm in the wrong area to say this, but I'm not a big fan of deer meat. I'm really not. It's a little too gamey for me, but my wife and my kids, they love it. Kyle likes it with the jalapeno cheese in it, you know, the sausage. But I'm just not a big deer meat fan. Okay. I've had deer hamburgers, and I'm just telling you, and they say, oh, it's just the same. No, it's not. No, it's not. It tastes gamey to me, and I just, you know, I'll eat it, but I'm just not a big fan of it. But anyway, she obviously doctors it enough to make him think that he's eating of his son's game, but it could very well be that his taste buds have been jacked up too. Look at verse 9. So go to verse 10 rather. Then you shall take it to your father, and that he may eat it. Now, again, she's the one preparing this meal. So obviously she knows her husband well enough to. I was saying the way to get to his heart is to go through his stomach, right? Yeah, yeah. He knew that, but I guarantee you she told him too. Isaac knew. I'm confident of that. And then verse 11, then you shall take it to your father, and he shall eat it, that he may bless you before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, and Jacob, now you can see he's starting to get a little nervous about this. Mom, that sounds great, but there's just one teeny tiny problem. I don't look like him. I don't talk like him. And thank God I don't smell like him. Yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah, the whole point. I don't look like him. I don't talk like him. He's got a deeper, manly voice. And I certainly don't smell like him, because you're going to see when Isaac is doubting, well, come on in, let me kiss you. I'm not so sure they really want to kiss his son as much as, let me get a whiff of you, you know. So he's a little nervous about it. Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. Verse 12, perhaps my father will feel me. He's thinking, then, if this goes bad, Mom, this is going to go real bad. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and he shall bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. But look what his mom says. She's willing to fall on the axe or fall on the sword. But his mother said to him, let your curse be on who? Me, my son, only obey my voice. Go and get them for me. And he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory food, such as his father loved. And Rebekah took the choice clothes of her elder son Esau. Now, again, she's got all of her steps covered. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she gave the savory food and the bread, which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. I can almost see it. You ever get, when you read Scripture, you kind of visualize it in your mind? You ever do that? I can almost see it. He's holding the tray there, and he's got the food, and he's as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I mean, he is just ultra nervous. You can almost see her with her foot get in there. You could just, that's the visual that I get, like, get in there. Well, we see Isaac, the dwindling father. We see Rebekah, the doubting mother. And again, why I'm calling her the doubting mother is because I think she's doubting God here, okay? Because God had already declared that, as Holly pointed out, that God had told her directly that when the two boys were struggling within their womb with each other, they were fighting, because she couldn't understand why are these boys fighting? They're not even born yet. They're already fighting. I got a lot to deal with. And so she's doubting whether or not God's going to honor what he had already declared. And by the way, here's the point I made you mark this in verse, I think, 41 through 45. Here's what's very interesting about this. Matter of fact, fast forward to that real quick. Her scheme is going to come at a very high price. I want you to write that in your notes. Her scheming is going to cost her dearly. And you say, what do you mean? Look at verse 42. No, verse 43. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay with him. I had you mark this a few days until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved also of you both in one day? And so she's afraid that if he sticks around, that Esau is going to carry out exactly his threat, that he's going to kill his brother. And more than likely, he would have tried to do it. Whether he'd been successful, I don't know. Obviously not, because I believe that God would have found a way to protect him. But then what does she say? She says, I want you to go to my brother's house, and I want you to spend a few days. Your brother will eventually cool off, okay? And then I'll call for you to come back, and we'll be one happy family, because if he kills you, not only will I mourn the death of you, but I'll also mourn the death of my older son too, because of what he did, because I'll be bitter toward him. Now here's the thing. Here's the kicker. That's why I said it come at a high price. As best we can tell in the Bible, this will be the last time she ever sees her son. She never sees, when she sends him away, in my understanding of reading the Bible, she never sees Jacob again. Now keep in mind, how many kids did he have? He had at least 12 sons. So there were a bunch of grandchildren that she would never, ever lay eyes on. And I'm wondering if when we get to heaven and we ask Rebecca, was it worth it? I wonder what she will say. Isn't that interesting? When you say that's a high price? In a real way, she was going to mourn because she would never see her son again. So all of this scheming is going to be very, very costly to her. So we see Isaac, the dwindling father. He thinks he's dying, okay? You can almost see, and this is typical men, and I can say this because I am rather, that we are such babies. You ladies didn't have to say anything. I'm glad Rita's not here tonight, because she'd go, preach it, Brill, preach it. We get a cold. We think we're dying. But anyway, we see Rebecca, the doubting mother. Now we see in verses 18 through 29, we see Jacob, what I'm going to call the deceiving son. Jacob, the deceiving son. Actually, I'm going to go back to verse 11, 12, and 13. And we see him fearful. Did you detect that when I read through that verse 11 through 12? And his mom says, hey, this is what I want you to do. Don't worry about the details. I'm going to take care of it. And he's thinking, Mom, this scheme is not going to work. If we sounded alike, we looked alike, we smelled alike, yeah, we could probably pull it off. But, Mom, I am nothing like my brother. And, oh, by the way, I thank God for that. But I am nothing like them. It kind of reminds me of that time. I think I've told you all this story. If I've told you, bear with me. That Kyle and Kayla followed each other in school. What I mean by that, when Kyle was in the 8th grade, Kayla was in 7th grade. So when Kyle went to be a freshman, Kayla moved into 8th grade. And Kyle stayed in a lot of trouble. Kyle, you're watching TV. You're watching tonight. You know this is true because you and I had these come to Jesus meetings about this. But Kyle had an English teacher, I forget her name, in the 8th grade that he gave her fits. So when Kayla came through the 8th grade, guess what? She's got the same English teacher. And so the English teacher is going through the roll on the first day of school, and she comes to Kayla Coffee. And Kayla tells me this is true. She said, Dad, she came to Kayla Coffee, and she stopped, and she looked up, and she dropped her glasses, and she leaned in, and she said, please tell me you are not related to Kyle Coffee. If I'm lying, I'm dying. And then here's what Kayla said. Kayla said, unfortunately, he's my brother, but fortunately, I am nothing like him. And that English teacher says, oh, I'm so grateful. She told me throughout the year, I'm so grateful your daughter is nothing like your son, Kyle. I'm thinking, what are you trying to say? I said, that's because Kayla's like me. No, that's obviously not true. Unfortunately, Kyle's just like me. Kyle, I don't know if you remember that if you're watching. So he's fearful that you know what, I'm nothing like my brother. This is a problem. Now skip down to verse 19. And I want you to read verse 19 to yourself. And I want you to pick out the 4 lies that he tells his father. After Rebekah makes the food, puts it in his hand, he's going to go in. And again, she's put the wool on him to make him at least feel like Esau. So read verse 19, and y'all help me out. What are the 4 lies that he tells? In one verse, he tells 4 lies. Did y'all get it? Here are the 4 lies. Verse 19. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau. Is that a truth or a lie? Okay. Your firstborn. Is that a truth or a lie? I have done just as you told me. Is that a truth or a lie? That's a lie. Please arise, sit, and eat of my game. Why is that a lie? Yeah, unfortunately, that was Rover. Yeah. And not only that, he didn't make it. His mother did. So look at that. In one verse, 4 lies. Okay? Now watch this. Isaac is not completely convinced, is he? Notice what he says in verse 20. But Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? And boy, you want to talk about Jacob thinking quickly on his feet. He says, because the Lord your God brought it to me. Was that a truth or a lie? So there's lie number 5 in just 2 short verses. And I think you would understand why that. I'm sure by the voice alone, he's thinking, wait a minute, you don't sound like Esau, and how is it that you have found this game so quickly? Usually you're out gone all day on a hunt. Verse 21, then Isaac said to Jacob, please come near me, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. Now watch this. Now again, she took the skin and the hair of goats, and she put it on his hands and around his neck, okay? You want to talk about being so far gone as far as not being able to see very well. Obviously, he's not listening. Not the only thing that still tastes good. I mean, even his taste buds are jacked up. His ears are jacked up because he's not, even though his ears think, all right, I think I hear Jacob, but then he doesn't even believe his ears. And then he begins to feel of Jacob and feels the hair of these goats, and he's convinced himself that this feels just like the skin of Esau. I'm thinking, man, how much a rugged guy that guy must be. I mean, if your skin is that rough and it feels like goat's hair. Watch this. He says, so come near to me. So Isaac, his father, Jacob went near to his father, near to Isaac. I'll get it right in a minute. So Jacob, verse 22. So Jacob went near to Isaac, his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. And then he said, are you really my son Esau? And he said, lie number 6, verse 25. And he said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's game so that my soul may bless you. So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said to him, come near now and kiss me. Again, he's still not completely convinced. Thinking, all right, come now and I will kiss you. Okay, this is that term, a matter of endearment to his son. But notice what it says in verse 27. He came near and he kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing and blessed him and said, and we'll talk about this blessing in just a moment. Now keep in mind, I don't want you feeling sorry for Esau either. Esau is just as wrong as everybody else in this story, and we're going to see it in just a moment. Because what was it that he was trying to do? He was trying to, and when his father said, hey, come here and I will bless you, okay, I will execute my will to you, and that certainly was appealing to the ears of Esau. But y'all remember what happened a couple of chapters back? He sold that birthright. So what he's trying to do now is to buy back with venison what he sold for stew. That's what he's trying to do here. So he's just as guilty. He already knew that he gave up his birthright. He already knew that he gave up that blessing. We're thinking, okay, I got duped by my brother. Guess who the joke's going to really be on? And we'll talk about Esau in just a moment. Well, let's look at this blessing in verses 28 and 29. Verse 27 says, and he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing, and he blessed him and said, I'm thinking, man, how bad must he have smelled too? Surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. And here's the blessing. Therefore, may God give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and the plenty of grain and wine. And here's the real blessing right here in verse 29. He says, let peoples do what? Serve you, and nations bow down to you, and be master over your brethren. Now, even watch this. And let your mother's sons bow down to you, and cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. Basically, what he's doing here is he's passing on the Abrahamic covenant that went through Abraham, that went through Isaac, and now it's going through Jacob. And he's blessing him with unlimited prosperity and power over the face of the earth. And not only that, but also blessing him with divine protection for all of his life. Okay, that's what you have. It says, therefore, may the God give you of the dew of heavens, of the fatness of the earth, let plenty of grain and wine. Let peoples serve you, nations bow down to you, be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. And watch this, cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. Where did that come from? That was part of the Abrahamic covenant. God had said the very same thing to Abraham. Now, why would God say, bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you? Because why? God's protective hand was going to be upon Abraham. And now God's protective hand carries on through the life of Jacob. Now, that leads us to the final character in this study. Because picking up in verse 30, going through the end of the chapter, we see Esau. Did I give y'all the deceiving son? Did I give y'all that? Okay. I've been known to leave blanks blank. Number 4, verse 30 through 46, we see Esau, the detesting brother. The detesting brother. You're going to just see how enraged how desperate and enraged he becomes, beginning in verse 30 all the way through verse 46. Stay with me. Now, it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he also made a savory food and brought it to his father and said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me. And his father Isaac said to him, who are you? Now, what do you think's going through Isaac's mind at this particular point? He now recognizes Esau's voice. Does he think, hey, is somebody now throwing their voice to sound like my son who was just in here? Remember, at first he thought it was Jacob. You know, he said, well, you smell like Jacob. You feel like Jacob. Esau, but you sound like Jacob. And so he's kind of perplexed here. Verse 33, then Isaac trembled. Can you imagine that? Do you think he began to shake? Because guess what? He now cannot undo what he's done. The I's have been dotted, the T's have been crossed, the document has been filed with the courts, proverbially, okay? Not literally. He says, who are you? I am your son, your firstborn, Esau. And then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, who? Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he shall be blessed. Now watch Esau's reaction here. Then Esau heard the words of his father, and he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, you can almost think, man, he's out there hunting this game, getting ready to do this, father, and thinking, boy, is Jacob in for a surprise. I'm going to steal back my birthright. I'm going to steal back my blessing. Now, the Bible doesn't say that he's thinking that, but you got to know that he's thinking that. But who's the joke on? it's on Esau once again. In fact, it says that he cried exceedingly great and bitter and said to his father. Now, he's reduced to begging. He's reduced to begging here. He says, bless me also, O my father. And he said, your brother, and Isaac responds, your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing. And Esau says, is he not rightly named Jacob? Does anybody know what the name Jacob means? It means supplanter. Okay, also could be translated deceiver. Okay, supplanter or deceiver. Is he not living up to his name? Indeed, he is. By the way, it's one of the reasons why when Jacob wrestles with God, the angel of the Lord, his name gets changed to what? Israel. Okay. For he was supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, now, look, he's taken away my blessing. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? In other words, is there nothing left in the kitty for me? Then Isaac answered and said, Esau, I indeed have made him your master and all his brethren, and I have given to him as servants with grain and wine. I sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son? This past Saturday at our egg hunt, we had 2 girls. I forget their names. They were twins. And I asked their dad, I said, do they fight? He said, only when they're awake and only when they're asleep. And I said, so the oldest one came up. I said, which one's the oldest? And she said she was the oldest. I said, do you lord that over your sister? Do you lord the fact that you're older? And she goes, oh, yeah, I do. And so verse 38, and Esau said to his father, again, he's desperate here. Have you only one blessing? In other words, is there nothing you can do? My father, bless me also, my father. And Esau lifted up his voice, and he wept. And Isaac, his father, answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, of the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live. And this is true. This is exactly the way he went down. And you shall serve your brother, and it shall come to pass that when you become restless, then you will break his yoke from your neck. Okay, you can separate forever. And Esau, again, they'll eventually come and settle their issues down the line. But for now, this is a major issue in this family's life. And then you look at verse 41. It says, and Esau hated his brother. I don't know that I can emphasize the emphasis here of the Hebrew word hated. I mean, this is not just someone who just says it out of a burst of anger. But I'm talking about literally enough to kill. In fact, it says here, Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing which his father had blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. He thinks his father's getting ready to die too. And then once my father has died, guess what? I'm going to get my pound of flesh and then some. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. So he sees this remorse for what took place in his life. There's this resentment, verses 36 through 37. Verse 38 through 40, he has this request. Hey, Dad, is there nothing else you can do? And then verses 41 through 46, he has this resolve. And his resolve, I'm going to kill my brother. I'm going to get mine and take it back. And again, you already know the story here. As I mentioned it when we were talking about Rebecca, that she sends him away for a few days trying to protect her baby boy, only to find out that this will be the last time that she ever sees her son. Any questions about or maybe thoughts that you want to interject before I open up this next section that we want to talk about?
Do you think maybe Isaac, when he realized that Jacob had deceived him, went back to what Rebecca had been told that the older would serve the younger? Do you think that entered his mind? That's when
I wonder. I don't know. I wonder. Yeah.
There's not another blessing. I'm sorry. So,
Yeah.
It brought it back to mind, and he said, "That's the way it's supposed to be."
Yeah. Could be. Could be. We don't have that in the Bible. Just like I said, I don't have it in the Bible that was Esau thinking about this on his hunt. I don't know. We're left to speculate. Yeah. Could be. Could very well be, Sam. Could very well be. Yeah. Yeah.
We are dysfunctional, just like we were, and for us to carry
Yeah. Yeah. And what Barbara's just saying, I don't know if y'all heard what she said, just talking, that this is a life lesson that, we look at this family and thinking, man, thank God I'm not like that. But in reality, we're a lot like that, aren't we? We're a lot more like them than we want to admit. Because Esau is going to take on some pagan wives. And they're going to be a thorn in the flesh. Yes, she does. Esau is going to marry pagan women. And Esau. Yeah. What does it say? I think she didn't want him to marry the daughters of Heth, right? It says, and Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth and of Jacob. This is one of the reasons why she's sending him away, because she don't want him to marry the daughters of Heth like these who are the daughters of the land. What good will my life be? So she's not wanting him to marry the daughters of Heth, okay, because Esau will do that. And I'm not going to get into y'all's personal lives. I don't know if you've ever had, I know that daughter-in-laws and mother-in-laws have not always gotten along. I'm hoping that you get along with those of you that have in-laws. I hope that you get along with your in-laws. But I know a lot of families, there's a lot of conflict, right? Because the wife is tired of the son of being mama's boy, okay, and feel like there's competing, and probably tired of the son trying to compare what she does to what his mother does. I know that when Rita and I, our first 5 years of marriage, and Rita would admit this, were very, very rough because, again, Rita was 18. She turned 19 a month after we got married. And so I'd already been living on my own. So she had never been out from her mom and dad's roof. And so everything that I tried to do, she would always say this to me. And again, we've gone way beyond this. We've been married 32 years now, so we're way beyond that. She would say to me, you think you might ought to ask my dad? And I told, and Rita would laugh if she was here. She'd say, oh, yeah, I remember those days. And I told her one time, I said, look, you married me. You didn't marry your dad. Oh, did he really? So, man, I remember those first 4 or 5 years. I'm thinking, man, if she says that to me one more time, to the moon, Alice, to the moon. Y'all remember. How many remember that? Okay. I like breaking out the old stuff that the young folks don't know, right? Yeah. So let me ask you this. Now that we kind of get past the narrative here, y'all help me out. This is where this is interactive. What are, and Barbara's given some very good ones, and you have too, Holly. What are some life lessons that you and I, or some applications that you and I can learn from this situation here? Because I know that you have a perfect family. I know you all have a perfect family. Not. You're the what makes it imperfect, right? I'm the one that makes it imperfect in my family. But what do you think that some life lessons think, you know what, if I would apply this, maybe I can avoid this in my own family's life? Very good. Very good, Jewel. I don't know if you heard what Jewel said. For those of you listening at home, I will repeat this because I think it's important. And what he just said, he's talking about deception and lying, that, Jacob, I'm sure you didn't have to teach him that, but she did. Okay, she did teach. I never had to teach my kids lying, but they did. Okay, my mom and dad hadn't to teach me lying, but I did. Okay, but in this case, she did. And so I think it would be a good application is don't teach your kids to be deceptive. Don't teach your kids to lie. They do a pretty good job of that themselves. Amen? Good one. Oh, yeah. 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 What about showing favoritism? Don't you think that was a contributor to how dysfunctional this family was? Absolutely it does. Not only between the two boys, but the parents. Absolutely. And don't you know, and my kids did this, and I'm confident your kids did this. They try to play one parent against the other. Do your girls do that? No? Y'all huh? Well, that's what we do too. That's what I would tell my kids, what did your mother say? Well, she said no. Well, then why are you coming to me? And then they would go to mom, and mom would say, well, what did your dad say? Well, he said yes or no, whatever. And why are you coming to me? If dad said it's okay, okay. If mom said it was okay. But a lot of times my kids, when they were younger, they would lie about it. And they'd say, well, dad said it was okay. And this is before we had cell phones, okay? This is back before the days we had cell phones. Y'all remember those days? Anybody remember what it's like not having cell phones? This is back when I had beepers, okay? And so I didn't have beepers back then, but I remember my wife saying, hey, after they've gone off to go do it, hey, did you tell the boys they could do it? No, I told them no. I'm going to skin them alive, And so we finally learned that lesson. No, let me go. No, Mom, don't ask. Don't, or Dad, don't ask. So you're telling me that Mom said no. Yeah. So. Yeah, a big major breakdown in communication between a husband and wife. And again, part of that may have been that she had already lost respect for him and that maybe he wasn't loving her. That, hey, you know what? She was a prop in my life. She was the mother of my kids, that kind of thing. Absolutely. Yeah. Not outwardly, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, not outwardly anyway. Yeah. But the culture, they had the culture, of the woman, you're to be quiet. You are to respect me at all. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Aren't you grateful it's different today? I'm not sure that any marriages will survive today as much as we've progressed. Amen. Amen, brother. Amen. Anybody else? That's a novel idea. What if we would just remember God's promise? What a novel idea. Man, that God is worthy of our trust, and that if he ever fails one promise, then he ceases to be God. Man, I can take it to the bank. What a novel idea if they would have just trusted God, and what a novel idea if we would just trust God. Yeah. Remember what they said? Remember the promise they made before Joshua died? Oh, no, Josh, you got nothing to worry about, Josh. We got this. Man, we're going to serve God. Didn't take very long. As soon as he dies, there they go, doing their thing. Yeah. 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 The more things change, the more they stay the same. Yeah. Yeah. History's repeating itself. Say that again? It is. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? This section over here has been awfully quiet tonight. Bill and Michelle, are you guys all right? Oh, do you? She's giving you plenty of it, or either that or you're giving her plenty of it. Or have you made some under your breath comments while we've been going through this Bible study, and she's been hitting on you? Yeah, tell him in front of us. What'd you say to him? Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. And Bill, the operative word is yes, dear. Yeah. Words. Prayer request.